Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, my name's Arsh Ellahi. It's Sunday, 23rd of October at 8 p.m. Hope you're well. Hope you've had a good weekend. Hopefully, this is the start. Hopefully, you're not dreading going to work tomorrow. If you wouldn't mind just giving you a quick hello. Let me know that you're here and you can hear me nice and loud and clearly. That'd be great. Okay, so hi Mark, hi Edward, hi Michael. Okay, brilliant. Right, so tonight, quite a broad topic. We're going to be talking about how to replace your salary in less than a year by managing properties for failing landlords. So pretty much that's exactly what we're going to be covering. Now, should I say, those are guys that we've got online. Can you just let me know, were you on a webinar that I did last Sunday? And the reason being is because we had a lot of people online last week, and some of the people said that I didn't spend enough time on talking about the rent-to-rent strategies. I did a lot on deal sourcing. So tonight we're flipping it around and we're talking a lot more on rent-to-rent, and hopefully you're going to take a lot away from it with a view of then turning this into a strategy that you're potentially going to implement in 2017. And I can't believe that I'm saying that, and it's not even November yet. Okay, so let's keep moving on. So first of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for trusting me with your time this evening. I appreciate that time is precious, and it's a commodity that, unfortunately, time's one thing that you can't turn back on. And I'll tell you a little story shortly as to how that really changed my life. And I guarantee that this is going to be the best 90 minutes that you would have invested in your own education. So, in just 90 minutes, you're going to know exactly how to replace your salary in less than a year, managing properties for failing landlords, how to make this a recurring income that's as safe as a salary, virtually passive. So, why are you listening to me? I'm a best-selling author of a book called Boom, Bust and Back Again. You can find it on Amazon. It is a #1 bestseller. And I've been involved in property, I will pretty much say, all my life, but I was involved in property full-time since I left university at the age of 20 in the year 2000. So I've been involved in property, 35, nearly 36 years. So you could say that I've seen it all and heard it all, and I'm pretty much a veteran who's earned my scars. And I'm also a rent-to-rent landlord, where I've got a portfolio of 37 houses on rent-to-rent, which means that these are properties that I don't own, I've got no reason or want to own, but they're giving me a monthly cash flow of £24,000 a month. Now, guys, question that we're going to ask some questions shortly, but I want to tell you a bit about a story. So, who am I? What have I done, and why are you here listening to me? So, like I said, I'm a property investor. So I've got in excess of 650 tenants. I'm a property trainer, which means that I've trained hundreds, maybe thousands of people throughout the year on different strategy. So I train people. I train people to show them what we do and how we do. More importantly, hopefully these are people who are going to be hungry for change to achieve financial freedom. Now, I'm going to tell you a bit about a story. So last year, some people may know this, some people may not. So last year was a tough year for me, and it really made me strategize as to how I wanted to move forward in business, because last year was a great year for business, bad year personally, because unfortunately, when I say unfortunately, my wife gave birth to our second daughter, but 5 days later, my father got diagnosed with cancer, which kind of really knocked me for six, because no one ever puts that into the calendar. Well, you kind of know the date that your daughter's going to be born, or you can kind of indicate when when someone's going to be born, but you can never you can't put into a diary the day that someone's going to be diagnosed with such an illness. Now, So you got diagnosed with cancer on Friday, the 13th of February 2015, and they said, "Well, Mr. Elahi, we've seen that you've got some form of cancer. We reckon you've got the best part of 12 months." So I decided that I wasn't going to work for the next 12 months, and I was going to spend some time just making sure that he's comfortable and enjoying the last days of his life. Little did I know that he only had 3 weeks to live. So it passed away 3 weeks from point of diagnosis, and it really knocked me for six, because I decided that I wasn't going to work for the whole year, and not never did I think I was going to be burying him in 3 weeks time. So I decided to took time off, and I kept sitting around thinking, well, what do I do? Do I go back to work? Do I have some time off and really mourn his death? But I decided to go back to work, and I decided that I was going to really strategize, because one thing it taught me is that life is too short. Life is far too short, and we never know when we're going. I always say that now we're living on borrowed time. No one knows when we're going to go. God forbid something happens to me tomorrow, but hopefully I'm going to be here at least another 50 years. So I decided to change my business, and now we've got a portfolio. I've got a short, a medium, and a long-term strategy, which I believe all property investors across the country should have. No one should be this thing called a one-trick pony. Now, I understand that people around the country are saying that you should find one strategy and stick to that strategy until you're great at it and do it again. I think that's poor. I think actually that's poor advice. And I don't mind saying this out. And you've got to bear in mind, guys, that this is public. Speaking to quite a lot of people online. And I'll say that if you're a one-trick pony, you're going to get stuck in a rut. Now, the one thing about strategies is that most of them interlink with one another, and providing that you become the best that you can be, and you interlink all the strategies according to the situation that you got in front of you, you're gonna be a successful property investor. And that's exactly what I did. So we started last year, we started trading a lot of properties, and between April and December, we traded 140 properties. Now, this year, 2016, we've followed the same model, and we're on target to do 250 deals this year. Now, I'm hoping that some of you see my deals, while some of you receive some of my emails, so you'll know how many deals we put out. This week alone, we've done 5 deals. So that's 5 deals, and that's created us 5 lots of pocket loads of cash. And we'll be talking about that later on as well. Now, I want you to take note of this, because when I was creating this presentation, I thought, well, how can it be different to last week? Because last week was a strong presentation. I thought this is quite powerful, because a goal without a plan is just a wish. And there'll be lots of people online, with all due respect, that will listen to this and won't do absolutely anything with it. Because what they've got, they have got a goal, and they see where they want to do it, but in reality, they won't do anything with it. So they won't create the plan, which means that it will always just be a wish. So, get straight into it. Why rent rather than buy? Now, I want to ask a question straight away. For the people that we got online, who are you? What do you know of rent to rent? And, is this a strategy that interests you? If you could just tell me a brief insight to that, and I'll have a quick look at the answers that come in. And whilst I'm doing that, let's go through the slides. So, why rent rather than buy? Now, one thing that you've got to take into consideration is that no one is a bottomless pit of cash. Regardless of how much cash you've got in the bank, you're going to run out of money. So that means that, what's it going to do? Are you going to grind to a halt, or are you going to decide to just sit on your hands? Or are you going to become complacent? Or what are you going to do? Because rent-to-rent allows you to acquire properties quickly. So speed of transaction. For argument's sake, just give you the example. I went to meet a landlord on Thursday afternoon. We agreed a deal Friday morning. I took the keys off him Friday afternoon. The agreement is due to start on the 1st of November, because I like things to start from the 1st of the month. But he's given me a couple of weeks grace so that I can go off and start doing some work. The cost of it, when I took that property on, it's cost me nothing so far, because I won't pay him until the 1st of November. And all he's done is hand me the keys. So we've provisionally signed the agreement, and it's very low risk. When I say low risk, remember, No, actually, risk is a great word because it all depends on what you're how risk averse you are. Now, for me, I am very risk averse. The reason why I say that is because I believe that providing that you you do your due diligence, property is a very risk free strategy. Now you're going to think, well, why am I saying that? Because believe it or not, everything can be calculated to the nth degree. Now, just giving you an example, with a rent to rent, let's just have a quick look. Is there anyone on here that doesn't know what rent to rent is? Hang on, let's just have a quick look. So Peter said, heard of rent to rent, but have no deals as of yet. Okay, Ashwin's got 5 properties, rent to rent. Rosemary, don't know much about rent to rent, would love to know more. Bilal, complete newbie to property and rent to rent. Okay, so Mark has got 9 properties, no rent to rent, but do want to do this. Starting in rent to rent with Roxana. And Stuart used a management agreement to control properties. Okay. Okay, right. Right, okay, cool. So I'm just quickly, okay, just going through. Right, property is very a risk-free strategy. The reason why I say that is because it can be calculated to the nth degree. Now, for argument's sake, let's just say this property that I've just taken off this landlord. Now, I've agreed to pay £700 a month. I've agreed to pay £700 a month for the next 7 years. Now, I'm going to do this calculation live. So £700 times that by 12 months is 8,400. Times that by 7 years, which means that technically speaking, my liability to this landlord is £58,800. Now, just out of curiosity, would this scare anyone? For argument's sake, just by all means, knowing that you've got a liability now to the landlord for the next 7 years at £58,800. Because, you know, this is what we're going to do to break it down. £58,800 is the liability. Okay, so Mike has put, it would scare me to death. Okay, Fiazza said yes. Okay, so quite a few people said yes. Now, for me, it doesn't scare me. Shall I tell you why? A, because I've probably got already existing businesses in the background. But B, I'm putting something called a break clause, which means that it allows me at any point to give either 1 or 3 or 6 months notice at any point. Now, for argument's sake, with this landlord, I've given 3 months notice. So technically speaking, my liability isn't 58,800. If the property doesn't rent for whatever reason, my liability is actually £2,100, not to mention any work. Not to mention any work that we've done to the property. So let's just say I've spent another £2,000 on furnishing the property. In actual fact, my liability to that property is £4,000. But bearing in mind that hopefully during that whole term, the property is not going to be completely vacant. So that's the worst case scenario, £4,100. Now, when you look at it from that point of view, where else can you acquire a property where they're going to give you the key straight away and your liability is only £4,100? That's why I say it's such a low risk property. Because if you were to go off and buy a property, you would need a deposit, you would need solicitor's fees, you would need mortgage arrangement fees, you need broker's fees, you need to meet the surveyor, you need to make sure that it all goes through. That's going to cost you more than £4,100 straight away. And then on top of that, there is no way of putting a break clause in with a mortgage company. Does that make sense? So do you see how I've broken it down? Now, if I was to buy the property, I would be committed to it for 20 to 25 years, whatever agreement we've signed, and there is no break clause. For me to get out of that property, I would have to sell it. It also then depends on the market factors as to what's happened to that property price and that location at that time. Let's just say that the property price dips. What happens? If I bought it for 100 grand, it's now worth 80 grand. I've just lost the best part of 20 grand. Not to mention all the works that I've done in the meanwhile. Whereas here, worst case scenario, I'm going to lose £4,100. So that's how I start to calculate. So that's why I say it's a very low risk strategy. And it gives you a recurring income because, very much like the picture suggests there, providing that you get it set up, you get it systemized, it can be a recurring income. Now, all my properties, on the 37 properties I've got there, I very rarely see them or touch them. I actually went to one last Monday just to have a little walk around because we had to meet one of the builders there for some improvements. But other than that, it's very rare that I actually get involved in any of these properties. So there is no excuse. All you need is determination and a whole lot of willpower. Now let's have a quick look at this. Manage rather than buy. Now what's the benefits of, we've already talked about a massive benefit of renting rather than buying. The fact that you don't require a deposit, the fact that you can calculate your risk in a much smaller chunk. Whereas in a buy-to-let, you're fixed to that period, regardless of whether you like it or not. Now, on average, a buy-to-let investor makes approximately £200 cash flow, whereas a rent-to-rent investor will make a minimum of £650 per cash flow per property per month. And it gives you a recurring income without actually buying the property. Remember, in any of my properties, sorry, out of the 37, there's only ever been one that I've given a deposit to. All the rest, I've never paid a deposit. In some of them, I've even negotiated rent-free periods. Some of them, I've even negotiated the landlord to do the work. The beauty with rent-to-rent and the beauty with this strategy, all the terms are subject to negotiation because you're not negotiating with a mortgage company. With a mortgage company, there is no negotiation. You either like it and you buy it, or you don't and go somewhere else. With the landlord, it's a case of, okay, here's the property, here's what I'm prepared to offer you, here's the terms, and there may be some form of negotiation, you know, okay, on the break clause, on whose responsibility and whose liabilities, etc. But it works extremely well. And you can create a recurring income without buying the property. And it's a repeatable system, and it's simple. So once you've started, I treat it pretty much as like riding a bike. When you first start, it's a bit wobbly, you don't know what to say, you don't know how it's going to go. But believe me, once you've got the first one off the ground, you've got the buzz, you've got the property bug. And as a result of that, it's going to keep moving forward. It's going to keep moving forward, and believe me, the more confident you get in it, the more experience you get in it, the quicker the deals come. And that's what I find. We don't actually have to market ourselves for getting deals anymore because agents are bringing deals to us. So, for argument, the one that I took on Thursday, Friday, a solicitor actually recommended them come and speak to me because they know that I'm the specialist in this area for offering long-term leases. And the beauty about this system is it will grow as big as your ambition. So for argument's sake, if you say, well, I only want a couple of properties because here's a scenario. Now, here's a question to you guys. Knowing that on the basis that a rent-to-rent property will create a minimum of £650 a month, how many properties, well, £650 a month, just so that you know, is equivalent to £7,800 per annum or per year. How many properties would you need like that for you to become financially free? If you wouldn't mind just telling me that, that would be great. Because then, I'm just going through some of the questions. Okay, so we've got a lot of questions coming in. Don't worry, I will go through these. So, okay, some people got some great ambitions. So Ashwin coming straight away. I want 20 properties. So technically speaking, Ashwin, yeah, you want 150 grand income. That's not unachievable. That's definitely not unachievable. All comes down to how quickly. Okay, my target is 40 deals, Peter. Fair play. Edward, to be fair, is a very modest 3. Okay, so Carol's put, I need 5 properties, I need 4. Some people put 10. Anywhere between 5 and 10 seems to be quite an interesting number. Because with the right systems, all you need is an hour per property per week. So 5 houses could equate to something as simple as a Saturday morning, which means that you could do this in conjunction with your job. But my question is, why would you want to do it in conjunction with your job? Unless you really love your job, why would you want to? Why would you want to get up tomorrow morning at, let's say, 7 o'clock and follow the cars into the traffic, especially if you're in London? I was in London on Wednesday this week, and I couldn't believe the traffic. And I just said, I'm so grateful that I don't live in London. I'm so grateful that I don't have to do this commute every day. I'm so grateful that I choose when and where I want to work. Because equivalent to 5 houses will give you an income of approximately £3,250 a month. Okay, so what is rent-to-rent? Let's get down to the basics, because rent-to-rent is a revolution in the property industry in the same way that iTunes was a revolution for the music industry. Now, that's a big claim, because when iTunes came into the music industry, it really shook the whole market up. And the same with rent-to-rent, because no one ever thought you could make money from a property that you don't own. Does that make sense? Because people thought, the general perception was, you have to buy a property, you have to put the 25% deposit down, you have to go through the solicitors, you have to do the mortgage paperwork, you have to go through the surveyor, deal with the surveyor, and after that you pay the mortgage, you rent it out in a single let, and then you make your cash flow. And you'll need a lot of properties for that. Whereas rent-to-rent really shook it up. And rent-to-rent really came to the forefront on the basis that you've got to remember, property is almost like evolution. So, for argument's sake, when the property crash happened in 2007, 2008, believe it or not, this is actually part of the journey of my book, which is Boom, Bust and Back Again, which again is available on Amazon. Now, the title suggests what the book is about: boom, bust, and back again. So, property's never always been an easy journey for me. So, in the recession, I nearly went bust. I literally held on to my business by the skin of my teeth, and I had to figure out new strategies as to how I can make quick, recurring income. Now, I already had HMOs, and HMOs prior to 2008 was actually quite a dirty word, because people thought, well, why do you want 7 or 8 people or 6 people living in one property? I just want it, a lot of people said, I want to keep it simple, want a single let, and it all worked really well. I've been doing HMOs since the year 2000, if not before, because my father actually was one of the pioneers of the HMO market. He'd been doing HMOs since the late 70s. And it was quite a risk-free strategy, because if you've got 6 or 7 people paying your rent, isn't it better than one person? And just imagine in a single let, if that person defaults, you've got no income. Whereas in a HMO, if you've got 6 or let's say 6 people paying income, and one of them default, guess what, guys? You've still got 5 other people paying rent, so it gives you time to get rid of that tenant or manage to move them on or negotiate how it's going to work, and it moves really well. Because as a grassroots revolution, it formed that was by people that had decided to make a better life for themselves than everyone else in the property food chain. So from the bust, everyone started to look at HMOs, but they still found funding difficult. So as a result of funding and bank lending becoming difficult, they had to find another way of acquiring properties without the requirement of funding. And this is where the evolution of rent-to-rent came from. And I get messages all the time, Arsh, you can't do rent-to-rent, it's illegal. You can't sublet it, it's illegal. And all that kind of stuff. Now, if you start using words like sublet, etc., yes, it is illegal. Now, one thing that you should be looking at is something called property management, because what rent-to-rent investor is pretty much almost like a glorified letting agency. So you're running almost like a property management company. And the reason being is that you don't do it on a lease. If you do it on a lease, you're going to be you're potentially going to be breaking the landlord's mortgage terms and conditions, as well as potentially the insurance terms and conditions. But if you do it on something called a property management agreement, it's not illegal, because it's pretty much the same term as if the landlord was using a letting agency. The only difference being is that you guarantee the rent, and you can guarantee it for a long period. So for argument's sake, the difference between you and, let's say, Martin and Co. or another letting agency across the country is that you can guarantee them the rent, whereas Martin Co. stuff, unless they're actually offering a guaranteed and a long-term let, you're pretty much in the same boat. Does that make sense? Now, with rent to rent, what you'll be doing, you'll be managing the property for the landlord and then hopefully renting it out by the room, which will mean that you'll be creating a HMO. And believe it or not, this is what most low-cost airlines do, because they don't, a lot of them don't actually own the planes. All they do is they rent the planes and then they rent out the seats. And now when you look at it, rent to rent, if you look at all the large businesses in the world, they don't actually own they don't actually own any assets. So let's look at Facebook, doesn't own actually any content. Let's look at Airbnb, which is a great one. Airbnb doesn't actually own any accommodation. All it does, pretty much like a glorified letting agent, what it does is an online service where you go on and you click the room. The landlord puts their property on there, you click the room, and they take a commission out. So that's exactly what you're doing. There's three people involved in the transaction: the landlord, you, and the tenant. And it really is as simple as that. You take the property off the landlord, you manage it on behalf of the landlord, give them a guaranteed rent, and you rent it out to the tenant. Does that make sense? Oh, am I making it sound a bit too easy? And the reason why I say don't use the word subletting, because subletting is illegal. Subletting is when you rent a house from a landlord and then you rent out the rooms. The management is a service the landlord desperately needs. If you start saying that you're going to sublet the property, you will be breaking the law. Now, Jamie's coming straight away and goes, do I need to get a HMO license? One thing that you need to look at is, dependent on your location. Now, in Wolverhampton, I would say majority of the country, anything that's two-storey, doesn't require a license. Anything that's 5 or more tenants, over 3 or more floors, requires a license. So that's something that you will have to look at in your location. But I can tell you, majority of the country, other things that you'll need to look at, and I don't mind mentioning it, is something called Article 4 Directive, which means, and you'll also need to look at selective licensing. They're the two main things that you'll need to look at. If you're in an Article 4 area, it doesn't necessarily mean that it can't be done, but it's just a little bit more tricky because you may require planning permission. With selective licensing, again, doesn't mean that it can't be done, just means that you've got to fill out some additional forms to get authority. And there's no better time to get involved in it, just purely because there's a surging tenant demand. Now, remember, with Brexit, the whole point of Brexit was to try and get more people onto the property ladder, try and get more younger people into the property ladder. How can they do that? Property prices haven't dropped as much as they thought it would. As a result of that, people's income haven't gone up, but the cost of living has. As a result of some of the new taxes coming in for landlords, it means rent is going up, which means that people aren't going to be able to save to get onto the property ladder. It is a vicious circle, which means that there's always going to be a surging tenant demand. The beauty about rent to rent is that because there's so many, well, there's no dominant player in the market. When I say that, for argument's sake, when you talk about estate agents, you're going to come across like people like Connells, etc., etc. But with rent to rent, there isn't a dominant player in the market. There isn't a person that I know that's got thousands of property on a rent to rent basis, but it could be you. Now, the rental market is booming at the expense of sales if the trend continues, and rentals will always outstrip sales, and it has done for the first time in 80 years. And by all means, don't take my word on this. This is just a clip of a newspaper that I took out, I think it was earlier this week, showing that it's the first time that rentals have outstripped purchasing since the 1930s. And finding that professionals are actually renting in their 40s. So we're finding that properties that were, let's just use Clapham as a, for argument's sake, that was worth 145 grand in 1986, is now worth approximately 1.3 million, which means that it's priced the young professionals out the market completely. Where are they going to get a deposit for a 1.3 million pound house? But more importantly, They never, unless they're on a high income, unless they're on a really high income, how are they going to service the loan? So generation rent is always going to be there. Now, here's something that you've just got to take into consideration: is that 7 banks are currently lending up to 80%, up to 80 years old. 10 banks are actually lending up to 85 years old. 13 banks have actually come in and said that they've got no actual age restriction at all, because people are having to buy later. So remember, the young professionals, etc., they're still in generation rent. And as a result of that, banks are realizing that it's taken them longer to get onto the ladder. As a result of that, before, majority of the banks used to say, well, we're only going to lend up to the age of 70. Now they're having to go up to 80, 85, which means that it's becoming a lot more riskier for those guys, because obviously the risk of death is becoming slightly higher. Remember, we talked about no dominant player in the market, and the reason being is that rent-to-rent is a better service for landlords and tenants. But if you notice, none of the letting agents have joined the rent-to-rent industry. But I can only see it being as a matter of time, because purely the way that you've got to look at it is that agents have got to wake up to this, because they're losing out on business. They're losing out on the fact that you guys will be going out, approaching landlords, taking properties off them, which means that there's going to be less stock for the agents. So when we talk about, is there a good time to get involved in it? Now is the perfect opportunity. We're going to be talking about now the next 4-step system to replace your salary. So we'll be looking at how to find the properties, how to control them, how to furnish them, and how to fill them. Because a lot of the questions say, well, okay, that's great, Arsh, you found the property, how the hell do you fill it? So we'll talk about it shortly. So, finding landlords, because finding landlords, you've got to see that finding landlords is pretty much like finding them in an ocean. Now, what you really want to do is find the accidental landlord. And here's some of the places that I find accidental landlords pretty much on a day-to-day basis. So you tell everyone that you know what you're doing. For argument's sake, I don't know, let's just pick on someone. So Carol, who's online tonight, she may have, let's say, I don't know, let's say 1,000 friends on Facebook, and she tells everyone what she's doing as a result of her new learned education. And on the basis of that, her friends might say, well, actually, Carol, you know what, I trust you. I've got a tenant, I've got a property, tenant left the property in a bit of a mess. You know, is this something that we can do together? As a result of that, Carol has just broadcasted to a whole 1,000 people that this is what she's doing, this is how she's going to help landlords nationwide. On the back of that, there'll be referrals. Our greatest asset as a business is our word of mouth referral, because we also offer referral schemes as well. Now, there are property networking events across the country that you can go to that are full of accidental landlords. There's even property portals like Gumtree, Spareroom, Rightmove, DSS Move. There's so many that you can go on. I think there's approximately 30 portals that I go on every day and look for new stock. Okay, so Ayola, let's just put, I can't hear anything. Ayola, if you can't hear anything, I'm just going to say log out and log back in. Okay, so people say, Phil's put, well, how do I get deals from agents? How can they benefit in the way that we can both win? Believe it or not, Phil, there is a fantastic way to work with agents. We work with agents all the time. We get referrals from agents, we get referrals from accountants, we get referrals from solicitors, and they're the easiest business to win. Because believe it or not, agents, what do they want to do? They want to let property, but they don't want the hassle. So we've come up with a whole spiel of how to work with agents and exactly what you need to say to them, and how to make sure that, as you rightly say, create a win-win-win. Win for the landlord, win for you, win for the agent, win for the tenants living in the property. Now, first thing about control is you need to understand, what does a landlord want? What is his problem or her problem? What is the problem they are suffering through right now? Now, I'm a big advocate for talking about two things, and regardless whether you hear me on a webinar, regardless whether you hear me speak across the country, I will always talk about two things called pain and motivation. Once you understand what the pain is, you find out what the motivation is, you'll be able to find a solution, because you guys aren't property investors, you're problem providers. Not problem providers, you're problem solvers, sorry. You're problem solvers. Because without knowing what the problem is, or without understanding what pain is, how will you ever win them over? Does that make sense? Now, you guys, Jamie's put, is this in your book? Believe it or not, yes it is. And, you know, it's a great way to put a shameless plug in. It's called Boom Bust and Back Again. It's on Amazon. It's the #1 bestseller. So thanks for that, Jamie. So, control. How to look and sound credible. Because, you know, with all due respect, I get contacted all the time. From people saying, well, Arsh, I'm thinking about approaching a landlord, but I don't know what to do. And some people say, I'm out of my depth. What can I do? Because what you've got to do is look at and focus on taking away his pain. You've got to show your knowledge by understanding the market. Remember, whenever I go out to a landlord, the moment he mentions a figure, I know instantly whether it's going to work for me or not. Like, for argument's sake, the landlord that we went to meet on Thursday, he came out straight away with a figure, I'm thinking about 900. I said, well, okay, on that basis, let's not go any further, because I don't think I'm going to get anywhere 900. Now, put him straight, pretty much immediately on the back foot. We start talking, and then he goes, okay, that's interesting, because what was he expecting me to say at 900? Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I said, sorry, at 900, that's not going to work for me. I said, you know, I'd rather not waste your time, rather not waste my time. But, you know, the way that I've looked at it, the way, on this kind of property, in this kind of location, the kind of figure that I can offer you is 700. We started talking about it. We started talking about the benefits of what I can offer him, how everything, all the benefits is going to outweigh any of the issues that he's going to come across by dealing with it himself. And we did the deal. Because I talked about my knowledge, I talked about the market, I understood the rent prices, I talked about my tenant experience, I talked about how, you know, I've got the scars of 650 tenants. Now, I appreciate that you may not be able to do that, but I'm going to give you guys an opportunity where you can actually potentially JV with me. And you can also talk that you're actually part of a network of property investors, which is something that we'll talk about. Side put, I spoke to a few potential landlords, but they don't want to give me a chance because I'm totally new to this. How can I get started? Right, side, you know, everything that we just spoke about is what you should be looking to achieve. If you, now, for argument's sake, if you go there and you show your naivety that you're completely, if the landlord asks, well, am I completely new to this? Are you going to say, well, yeah, this is my first property? Naturally, they're not going to want you to be their guinea pig. They don't want them to be your guinea pig, should I say. What you've got to do is you've got to be saying to them, well, this is one of many properties that I'm part of a massive group, and this is one thing that we'll be talking about. I'm part of a massive group that actually, you know, take on thousands of properties nationwide. So that's something that I'll be talking to you about shortly. So go back to control, because you've got to talk about what your irresistible offer is. The irresistible offer, what is it that you can offer that no one else can offer? What is it that you can offer that no other letting agent can offer? Guaranteed rent, long-term let, no management fees, professional tenants only, and also the benefit of upkeeping the property, because you pay a cleaner weekly to go in, inspect the property, and keep the property in good order. Remember, we're talking about all these things are called the USP, your unique selling point. You need to make sure that you've got these in order before you speak to a landlord, because if you don't know what you're offering, you're not going to get the deal. Remember, you're going to bring the property back up to standard. You're going to furnish the property. As a result of furnishing the property, as a result of bringing it back up to standard, you're also going to increase the market value, which means that he's going to benefit in the long term. So what is this no money down property investment strategy? Because I'm going to talk to you briefly before we go back onto any other content about a workshop that I'll be holding on the 19th of November, where I'll be talking to you about two different property strategies, about property trading, Remember, I told you that I'm in the process of trading 250 deals this year alone. And how to create holiday sales bundles of cash, working just at the weekend, and also how to create an regular income as safe as a salary, managing properties that you don't own. And they go hand in hand with one another, because I've got a strategy called buy, sell and rent, buy, sell and rent, buy, sell and rent. And if you take nothing else away from this webinar today, write down those 3 words: buy, sell, rent. Can I buy it? If I can't buy it, can I sell it? If I can't sell it, can I rent it? I do this every day. Every property that I go out to, can I buy it? Can I sell it? Can I rent it? Can I buy it? Can I sell it? Can I rent it? And as a result of that, every time I go out to a property, I'm going to do a deal with that property. If I can't buy it, can I sell it? If I can't buy or sell it, can I rent it? Now, we're going to be talking about what is rent to rent, how to get started fast, cheaply and safely, how to find landlords that are desperate for your help. We'll be showing you how to give struggling landlords everything they want and more, so that they can practically crawl across broken glass to have you manage their property. You're going to be talking about them needing you more than you needing them. How to profit from the surge in tenant demand, and how to basically create a simple formula to make your advert stand out in a crowded market. Now, someone put in there, I'm going to quickly find out. Let's have a quick look. Someone put, there are so many people doing this in my location. I'm just trying to say, yeah, so someone's put, there's so many people doing this in my location. What makes me different to other people? First thing that you need to ask yourself is, what makes you different to the other person? The beautiful thing is that, providing that you've got property, the one thing that you're going to do is you're going to learn my formula as to how to make your advert stand out in a crowded market. And what do today's professional tenants want? How to create a luxury accommodation on the shoestring budget. And then on the other side, we'll be talking about property trading. 5 direct-to-owner sourcing strategies which will give you the deal flow to meet your cash flow needs. How to deal with estate agents and what are their secrets. How to create an army of sourcing agents that work for free. How to negotiate secrets to close more deals with bigger discounts. How to create a win-win for you and the homeowner. How much you need to move. How to calculate this. How to sell a value of it to the homeowner. Now, one thing I will be talking, I'll give you a quick example of a property. I don't mind sharing this. I can even give you the address. You can even do the due diligence whilst on it if you want, just so that you can see that it's live. I actually negotiated a deal with an owner where, just by controlling his property, we made 35 grand. I don't own the property. I don't envisage on owning the property. But we made 35 grand, and it took 4 weeks to do that deal. It cost me, to get involved in the deal, it cost me £750. So this is something that I will be teaching you. Sorry, I'm just quickly going through the question. So on the trading side, we made 35 grand on a deal that I don't own, and I've got no envisage on owning, and I haven't owned it, and all I've done, I've controlled the property, I've taken it through a process, we've got an option on it, we put it into the auction, we gave the owner what they wanted, their 80 grand, we sold it in auction for 115 grand. Now all the fees were paid by the buyer, which meant that I walked away with a clear 35 grand from a deal. So Jamie put, okay, did we spend on legal advice? Yes, that's all it was. The 750 quid was auction entry fees, but in actual fact, we're getting that back. So all we did was we speculated £750. We'll be looking at 3 different ways to sell your deals for cash in less than 5 days, and the fastest and easiest ways to sell your deals. One of them, which is Facebook, which is free. But then we'll be talking about the other ways which makes the deals better. Now, remember, guys, you see my emails every day. You see the kind of volume that we're doing every day. So we'll see rent-to-rent deals, we'll see lease option deals, we'll see below market value deals. And these are deals that we're doing on a day-to-day basis, but we'll be showing you how to create systems to grow your business on autopilot. Now, I don't put those emails out. All I do, I negotiate the deals, and the rest looks after themselves. I'm not there unless someone wants to pick up the phone and have a chat. I'm more than happy to have a chat, because I can have a chat in Wolverhampton, or I could be in Barbados and I could still have that chat. I'm not tied to my area. Now, all the deals that you see, I won't go out to see a single one of them, which means that it is pretty much on autopilot. How can I be in London and also in Haverfordwest, as well as Wolverhampton, as well as Swansea, as well as Kingston, all in the same day? It's impossible. You've got to ask yourself, how would I do that? And how to build your income and your property empire and the speed of your ambition. So it is 497, but stay there, because that's less than 1 month's cash flow. Now let's keep moving on to furnishing the property. What do you need? Where to get it? A question that you've got to ask yourself is, to create the luxury living on a budget, what do you do to help to meet the professional tenants' demand? Are they renting longer and prepared to pay more for quality accommodation? So what do you need in each room? So you may, we're going back to rent here, by the way, guys. So in each room, for each room, you'll need a double bed, wardrobe, chest of drawers, chair, depending on the size of the room, ceiling light, door locks, curtains, and artwork. Just have a quick look at the picture that we put in there here. So for argument's sake, okay, that naturally looks like a bit of a hotel room, but I've got pictures of rooms that we've pretty much created almost like a formula that now, where do we buy them from there? But we'll go through that in a second. So in the kitchen, again, because there'll be a shared kitchen and a shared bathroom, you'll need cutlery, crockery, pots and pans, cups and glasses, a washing machine, fridge, and a dishwasher. And for the communal area, a big TV, 2 sofas, and a dining table. But where do we get it? Where do we get it? How can we get it quickly and a cost-effective way and systemizable? Because the one thing that you've got to look at is IKEA is fast, reliable, and scalable. And the reason why we say it's fast, reliable, and scalable is because if you buy it once, all you've got to do is know the product name and the product code, and you can pretty much just order it off online for the next project, and it will keep turning up. And all you've got to do is get people to assemble it, put it in, and you've systemized it. And it's scalable, because you know that if you go for stuff like the Malm range, which is MALM, that's consistently stock that this stock season after season after season, because it actually is their bestseller with landlords and property investors. Now, if you go for the boutique style, you've got to become a little bit more creative. You've got to become a little bit more personal. And it's dependent upon you. Now, I've got a mentee, actually, to name of Richard. He prefers boutique styles HMO, and the finish that he creates is phenomenal. Now, he took a property on in Dudley, where we agreed a deal for 7 years with a landlord at a rent of, I think it's like £650 or £600 a month. And it's a 6-bedroom HMO now. He's created it into a boutique style HMO, and he actually didn't spend a great deal of money. And as a result of that, it's actually cash flowing him well in excess of £1,200 a month. And it's fantastic, because with boutique, as you become more creative and as you become more personal, as it becomes more high end, you get to charge more rent. The one thing that you've got to do is make sure that you fill the rooms, because you've guaranteed the rent for the landlord. Remember, we talked about the liability earlier on? Because empty rooms equals big problems. If the rooms are empty, means you're paying the rent out of your own pocket. But if you follow the systems that we've created, you won't have to worry about any problems, because what we'll be showing you is actually how to fill the properties quickly. Because the key to filling the properties is actually the craft in creating the perfect ad. You need to make sure that you put your ad in all the right places. And the beauty of your advert and the secret to it is the picture. Because for argument's sake, now you could very much all go onto Spare Room. You could very much all go onto Spare Room. You can have a look at the pictures. Some of the pictures on there are absolutely diabolical. Now you've got to look at it from both points of view. You as a property investor that's putting it up there, but also take a step back and just imagine that you're potentially a tenant looking for a property. You look at those pictures in those eyes. Would you want to live there? Would you want to live there? Would you be comfortable living there? What's going through your mind? What kind of questions are you asking yourself? Does it look clean? Does it look habitable? Does it look warm? Does it look refreshing? And also look at all the rooms. Now, some people only put a picture of the room. What about the other rooms? Because not everyone just spends the time in the room. They want to spend time in the communal living space. They want to spend time in the kitchen where they cook. How does that look? How does that present itself? And the description, again, is key. Because you've got to ask yourself the question, why would someone live here over anywhere else? Now, when I do a description, I really go to town. I talk about the transport links. I talk about the parking. I talk about distance to locations. I talk about, any kind of social facilities that are nearby, the gym, the restaurants, the pubs, the cafes, and what kind of environment, the other tenants in the house. Not so much about who are they personally, but what is it that they do, and are they professionals, etc., etc. Because there's so many places that you can post around. There's lots of free posts, places you could upload them to Gumtree, you could upload it to Facebook groups. Like in every area will have their own independent group, which means that it's free. Again, you've got easy spare room, you've got easy roommate, you've got spare room. You've got the local newspaper. There's so many places for you to advertise, not to mention places like UPAD. There's so many places for you to advertise your property. Now remember, going back to the start, what makes rent-to-rent amazing? The speed, the cost, the low risk, recurring income, and the no excuses. And provided that you do it correctly, it should only take you an hour or a week per property. Now, in my portfolio, I've got a 23-bed HMO, and it only takes me an hour a week to manage that property. I've got people in places, I've got systems. We've got so many systems in place so that I don't physically. Can you imagine me running around after 23 tenants in one property? It would take some people a whole week just to manage that property, but we've systemised it to a point where now where it simply is fully systemised, and I only have to spend an hour on it a week. So going back through, we'll be showing you how to get started quickly and cheaply. Not going to quickly go through all these again, but remember, we'll be talking about deal trading, how to make holiday-sized bundles of cash. Now, the deals that you saw this week, we've sort of put some deals out where we've generated £5,000 off one deal, £3,000 off another £3,000 off another. I think there was one deal where there's £2,000. And there's another deal where we generated £4,500 for rent-to-rent, actually in, where is that? It's in London, towards Kent. If you give me a second, I'll actually give you the actual location. Because people say this can't happen in London. I'm going to share a little secret with you in a second. Because I'll tell you that the actual location of the last property was in Gillingham in Kent. So I'm not going to go through those again, which normally the investment would be 497. But tonight we're going to make the most outrageous discount. I could ask for your first month's cash flow, or alternatively, the workshop that we're running, yes, that's right, £47. Now, there is no catches to it. It's a one-day workshop we're holding on the 19th of November in Birmingham. And on that day, we'll be covering both strategies. So in the morning, we'll be covering rent-to-rent. In the afternoon, we'll be covering the deal trading strategy. How to join a JV with me so that the deals that you source is stuff that we can either try and trade on, and there's a number of ways that I can help. And if you're not entirely satisfied, all you've got to do, all you've got to do is tell me at lunchtime on the day, and I'll give you a full refund. No questions asked, no problem at all. Now, that's the location. It's on Novotel in Broad Street in Birmingham. So I'm going to talk to you about, here's this gentleman. Now, here's a gentleman I trained actually in February 2015. He's named JC. He's actually based in Croydon in London. And within 1 year, he managed to get 18 properties, which is now giving him a cash flow of £15,445 per month. And all the properties are in Croydon. And just so that you know, here's a gentleman to the name of Girish. Now, I'm trying to get JC to join me on the day, on the 19th of November, so that he can talk you through what his success story, and also Girish is going to be with us, definitely. So he's been working with me since for the last 3 months, and he's taken on 6 rent-to-rent properties in just 6 months. Sorry, not in 3 months, sorry. Which is now making him a cash flow of £4,320. As a result of that, he's actually just quit his job. Susie Bates is making £865 cash flow from 1 property. And she's got 4 properties in Leicester, which is now giving her a cash flow of just over £3,000 a month. Because these are all people that are real, doing it on a day-to-day basis, and you can be part of that as well. Are JC, Girish and Susie any different from you? No, they're not. They just put their doubts aside for long enough to give this a try. They're now making life-changing amounts of money. Anyone who can follow a proven system with consistent, determined action will succeed. To prove it, I'm giving you almost free property training. Courses like this that we normally sell for £997 plus VAT. Today, you can have it for £47. So we're going to go through some questions in a second. So can you afford to miss this? So what happens if you do nothing? Well, don't worry about it, because you don't have to worry about learning anything new. You don't have to worry about getting out your comfort zone. You don't have to worry about taking any action. Which means that, again, your life won't change. Your frustrations will still remain at work. You still have to suffer through the commute every day. You'll have to accept that your choices in life are limited. So to learn all the secrets at no risk to you at all, remember we talked about risk. How is this? If you don't like it, you can have your money back at lunchtime on the day. So it pretty much is no risk to you whatsoever. Grab this outrageous discount, and it's the only time we're running it this year. So in November, 19th of November, in this location, all you've got to do is click the link below, which is bit.ly/NMD property investment. Because remember, a goal without a plan is just a wish. And I'm a big fan of that. You know, everyone's got so many goals, but they never put anything in place to make it happen. Therefore, it will always be a what if or why didn't we? Now, that link is case sensitive, so just bear that in mind. Right, okay, so someone said I can't click on the link. So what I am going to do is, bear with me, and I should have thought about this earlier. Oh, sorry, excuse me. I will put this into the answer box here, and just to make sure it works, I will also copy it. I'll put it into my... Perfect, okay, so that link does work, and I've sent it to you all. So if you're Ashwin, if you have a look at your question page. Okay, so there we go, send it to all. Now I'm gonna take a couple of minutes just to go through some of the questions. Right. So Phil has put that last I said that we're recording it and making it live. So Phil, you will get the recording. As for the documentation, we can't provide you with all the documentation for £47. Admittedly, I'll be completely honest about that. You're not going to get all the documentation for £47. That'd be absolutely outrageous, because the documents alone cost me thousands of pounds to create. So, you know, if you want to join us, you can meet us on the day, and I would prefer for people to be there on the day. So side put, do I have to enroll on your full rent-to-rent training after attending on the 19th? No, side, you'll have all the tricks that you should, tools that you should be able to go off and do it from there on. Whether you decide to join us on any further training is completely up to you. Michael put, can a partner attend? Excuse me. Sorry. Quick sneeze, come back. So a partner can attend, but obviously they'll have to pay for their own place for £47. Because it's costing us £47 to host you at the hotel. So unfortunately, that would be the price per person. Excuse me. So Carol says, what time will we be meeting? Well, we'll congregate at 8:30 in the morning. We'll start at 9 o'clock sharp, and we should be finished between 4 and 5 o'clock. And we've done it in a central location in Birmingham, which means that you should be able to all get there via train. So Phil says, sorry, so do we provide the documentation? You won't get the property management agreement, Phil. I'll be completely honest and clear on that, unfortunately, because that costs us thousands of pounds to create. You'll be getting all the things to go out and, well, you'll be getting all the skill to go out and do it. Then with regards to documentation, it'll be up to you to either create yourselves or purchase via other mediums. So that's completely up to you guys. So Roxana said, are we going to be doing any courses in London? Well, we're just currently looking at other locations possibly to do in the new year, but there's nothing certain on that. Okay. So Peter says, if we drive down there, is there ample parking? Yes, there is ample parking in that location. So let's keep moving on to some of the questions. So, right. So going back from the start, just making sure that we've got okay, so Ashwin again asked the question, do we have a break clause? But I think we went through that. So all of it is down on the break clause basis. So we'll make sure that we put a break clause in so that I can calculate what my liability is at any point. Okay, I'm just going through. So Edward put, find me failing landlords. Believe it or not, Edward, failing landlords everywhere. The key to it is finding out the pain and the motivation. So John put, deals are very hard to get. Not if you're looking in the right location, John. Because like I said, there's a sea or even an ocean of people out there that are struggling. People just assume that landlords are doing really well. What happens behind closed doors, you'll never know about unless you ask the questions. Okay, so quickly go through some of the questions. Break clause, what about improvements? Okay, so Ash's put, what about improvements? Who's agreed? Remember, going back to a conversation, with rent to rent, the beauty of it is all subject down to negotiation. So you can either say, well, this is down to me and this is down to you, or with the one that I took on Thursday, I said I would take on the improvements, but I've already calculated that into my costs from day one, because one thing that you need to calculate is what is your break-even point? At what point does it start to make money? At what point are you in profit? And you need to calculate how long the term have you taken it on, and at what point does it stop making money, because that's the point that you need to know when you can get out. Now, Ashton put, is the rent fixed for the whole 7 years? Again, this is down to subject to negotiation. I try and fix my rent regardless because I want to know what my liability is. I know other people that will fix it for certain periods. I know people that will fix it for 3 years, that then may go off and offer a 10% rent increase, and then may go off and offer a 10% rent increase further on year 5 and year 7 to keep the landlord motivated. I understand that, but from my point of view, I want to try and fix it as long term as possible from day one. Rosemary says, how do you get around not paying a deposit? Would you need to go through the referencing process? Now, Rosemary, with me, I don't pay a deposit purely because I go back on the basis that we're going to be putting a lot of money into their property. Obviously, if they're now trying to charge us deposit as well, that's going to restrict our cash flow, which is also then going to increase our break-even point. So there's lots of things that you've got to take into consideration. Okay, so Michael put, what's the surpluses after providing furniture? Um, your furniture would have been built into your costs from day one. So, for argument's sake, let's just say a 5-bed HMO where each room's costing you between £200 and £300 a month. Sorry, not a month, to furnish. So, 5 rooms at £300, that's £1,500. That's something that you'll build into your costs from day one. Jamie put, do we use agents to market the property? That's one way that you can get deals off agents, by referring the business back to them. Yes, it is possible, but obviously bear in mind that that's going to take a chunk out of your profit margin. Okay, so Phil has put, how are you making an extra £600 compared to paying the landlord, compared to paying a landlord rent? Is this now a HMO? That's exactly what it is. Or are you doing the service apartment? Now, the beauty of it is, Phil, with rent to rent, you're not restricted to what you do with that property. You could turn it into a HMO, or alternatively, if you wanted to, you could turn it into a service accommodation unit. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. It all depends on your location and where you are. If you're in London, service accommodation is actually on fire. And I've been working with some guys recently that started 12 months ago. I've got 19 service accommodation units, and they're making on average around £800 per service accommodation unit. Right, so just quickly going through. So if the room price includes a contribution towards utility, what's the overall utility bill for the property managed? Are there any secrets? There's lots of secrets how to keep your utility costs down, and these are a couple of things that we'll work through on the day. There's stuff like that you can put into kind of, not restrict, but control the central heating system. So it comes on certain points. There's lots of clauses that you can put in your contracts so that you're not overpaying on utilities. So there's lots of things we'll be going through, Michael. Okay, so we've gone through the HMO license part. Okay. So Mr. Hadry has put, would a lender object to rent-to-rent letting or HMO if the buy-to-let mortgage stipulates a single let? Chances are yes, but this would all be subject down to the landlord to find this out before you take the property on. Because if the mortgage stipulates that it can't be anything other than a single let, unless the landlord has got something written from the mortgage company to say otherwise, you've just got to assume that you can't turn it into a multi-let. So I'm just quickly going through some of the other questions. Right, okay, let's start from the bottom. Okay, so Phil's coming with a question, goes, what happens if we spend £3,000 to do the place up and then the landlord uses the break clause in 6 months? You could be out of pocket. No, Phil, because the landlord can't literally just say to you, well, thank you very much for creating it, Phil. Thank you very much for creating it, Phil. Off you go. Thanks for spending a load of money on the property. It doesn't work like that, fortunately. There's lots of clauses in lots of agreements. But, sorry, I was just reading another email there. They can't literally just come and try and turf you out the property, because technically speaking, you've got the property on there for 7 years. It's only if you default that they can actually turf you out. You've got the option of handing back the property if it doesn't work for you at any period. So, you know, there are specific clauses that we put in there. Now, Abbas has saying, Abbas, just so that you know, the link that you're putting in is actually incorrect, because you've put a dot between property and investment. I'm going to send everyone the link again. Just click on that link. So follow the link to the T, because if you put in the wrong letters or you put in a dot or a hyphen here or there, it's not going to work. So Ashwin has put, can this be done with flats? Yes, it can. Just bearing in mind, obviously, you've got to have a plan B if you decide not to run it as a serviced accommodation unit. Phil has put, if we provide furniture, do you take it back after you finish the rented period? Yes, because that's your property. That's your stuff. But just bearing in mind that if you're taking furniture back after 3, 5, or 7 years, what kind of condition is it going to be in? Is it going to have any value to you? Anise has put, hi Osh, will the link be valid for another hour? As hubby has a card and will be home in an hour. Needs to book 2 places on 19th. It will be available from pretty much up until the end of tomorrow, admittedly. Michael's put, what if the property is mortgaged in the landlord's name and the risk of not paying the mortgage when receiving the rent? But that could be said about anything, Michael. That could be the same as a buy-to-let landlord with a single let. And a letting agent is collecting the rent, paying the landlord's not paying the mortgage. Why would they do that? Why would the landlord purposely want to get himself repossessed? I think you've overthought it. I think you've overthought it there, Michael, because why would someone want to actually physically get themselves repossessed? Okay, so further support, do we need to see proof that it can be multi-let from the landlord, permission from the mortgage company? Now, in my agreements, what I do, Phil, is that I don't physically need to see proof. I've got it in there, is that the landlord has agreed and understood that the property is to be multi-let. If there is any objections, he needs to speak now or not sign the agreement or inform us prior to taking the property on. And it's in there that he has also taken advice legally and from his mortgage company to confirm that he's happy to proceed on that basis. So we don't, we do put some onus back onto the landlord. So Jamie has come in with a different question. He goes, what's the difference between rent-to-rent and landlord having rent protection insurance? Good question, Jamie, because technically speaking, rent protection insurance is a product created by insurance companies that will pay out should a property become void or have any damage. Now, the other thing that you've got to ask yourself, Jamie, is now if you know, for argument's sake, let's just say that same property. Now he's renting it out for £600 a month on a single let. Whereas if you know that you're going to get 5 or 6 rooms out of it as a HMO on a rent-to-rent basis, potentially what you could offer him is, now out of that £600 a month, if he's using an agency, he's going to automatically lose 10% for management. Or if he's going to do it on a let only, he's going to pretty much lose 10 or 8% anyway, because let's just work on the basis that they're charging a month to find a tenant. You're going to be offering them a lot more than what the agent is offering them, because first of all, there's no maintenance, there's no voids, there's no bad debt, there's no let only, there's no fees, there's no dealing with tenants. So, but the rent insurance won't protect that. And the other thing that you've got to take into consideration is that you've got to pay for that insurance. So it's £600 a month. Let's say it even costs £12, which is equivalent to 2%, plus the management cost of 10%. So it's now costing you 12%, plus the void. Sorry, not the void, because that will cover it, but plus the maintenance. Let's just say that you put in a contingency of £50 a month on a £600 rent. It's equivalent to 8%. So it's not costing you 12%. It's actually costing you 20%. When you start to calculate the costs, you are in such a better position than the landlord. Than the insurance policy. So Gopal put, does the landlord know that we're subsequently going to further let as multi-occupancy? Yes, because you'll have to inform them from day one, because if you don't, or if the agreement doesn't stipulate that, then you're going to be in hot water a little later on down the line. So actual input, do you take on responsibility paying the maintenance, including gas certs, etc.? It all comes down to subject to negotiation again, Ashwin. It all depends on what you're willing to offer. And Silas put, do we bear the cost of the full maintenance of the property during the term of the agreement? I've got some properties, side, where I only pay the rent and the landlord pays the maintenance. I've got other properties where I pay all the maintenance and I only pay, the landlord receives the rent. I've got some properties where the landlord looks after the boiler and I look after everything else. It is all down to what you can get away with the landlord. Some landlords will want you to take on everything and pay them the full rent. Other landlords will be happy to still have some form of input into the property, but again, it all comes down to the pain and the all comes down to what you're after. Michael says, who's liable for insurance? Again, I would always suggest the landlord be liable for the insurance, just purely because it's his fabric. He still owns those bricks and mortar. So just something to take into consideration. James has put, will there be any upsell or any other higher training sessions? There is an opportunity for you to come and JV with me if you want to come and work with me, like the forms of Girish, etc. But like I said, there's no, you'll have all the tools, or you'll have all the knowledge that you need to go out and do the rent, the training, and the trading strategy. So, Rose says, are you only running the course on a Saturday? Unfortunately, Rose, yes. Okay, so Phil put, well, the documentation of the course, I mean the day's workshop. Technically speaking, Phil, there'll be a presentation that'll be run on the day. There won't be any workbook, so to speak, because I don't believe workbooks really work for a one-day only event. I want you to be taking notes. I want it to be interactive. We're going to be doing some breakout sessions. So technically speaking, there'll be the slides. If you want the slides, we can probably get them printed to you. That's not an issue. Rosemary again has asked, Rosemary, can I bring my partner? Yes, you can for additional £47 because that £47 is specifically per person. So it is £47 per person. Michael's put, how do we JV with you? Will this be an opportunity raised at the workshop? The JV opportunity is for only those that attend the workshop. So anyone outside the workshop won't be able to get a copy to won't be able to JV with me. We'll be providing a copy of the slides to those attending on the workshop. So just quickly going through, if you need to get a HMO license and the owner does not have it, what is the best way to approach it? If you need to get a HMO license and the owner does not have it, what is the best way to approach it? Now, Jamie, one thing that you can do, you've got to tell them what you're doing. Obviously, they've got to be aware that you may turn it into HMO. Now, the only reason you need to get it as a HMO is if it's in a licensable location. So, for argument's sake, just trying to think here. So, if it's 5 or more tenants over 3 or more floors, yes, it will be licensable, but that will also mean that you'll need to adhere to license conditions such as fire alarm, fire doors, thumb turn locks, smoke seals, and door closers. So yes, you will have to make sure that one thing that you could do, you could potentially put the license in the owner's name, or you could keep it in your own name. It's completely up to you. So just going through some of the other. Let's just quickly go through some of the other questions. So Mike has put that the link's not working. Okay, I think it is because everyone else seems to. Mike, click the link that's attached. Okay, brilliant. So Michael says it's just paid. Great, okay. So Ashwin put, can I bring someone and pay at the door? Unfortunately not, Ashwin. We need to know prior to the event so that we can accommodate for numbers. We need to make sure that we've got the right number of seats, and we need to make sure that this is going to be a sellout event without a doubt, because we ran this last week and we are pretty much at 70% capacity, and after tonight it will be full. So go put who pays for the HMO license? Again, subject to negotiation. On the ones that I'm doing at the moment, I'm currently converted a 4-bedroom house into a 6-bed HMO, and I'm paying for the license on that purely because the landlord doesn't, the landlord doesn't want to get involved. But more importantly, the more I show him, the more he's going to be inclined to go off and do it himself. Because if I'm showing him everything that I do, if I say, well, here's what you've got to do, here's the HMO application, here's how much it's going to cost, and I think, well, Arsh, to be fair, I can do this. I'm going to make a lot more money than the rent that you're giving me. So you've got to use a bit of common sense here. Siders put, do we realistically require a pot of cash before we start a rent-to-rent business? Now, so one thing that we'll be talking on the day is that you don't actually require a pot of cash to get started, because for the guys that attend on the day as a special bonus, we're going to have a presentation called Simple Equity, who will be showing you how you can actually raise the funds to do the project if you need it. So that's part of the JV process I was talking about. So I suppose on that note, I've pretty much answered all the questions, well, as many as I can answer without going over myself. So I want to say thank you for taking the time to be on this webinar. Hopefully that you now understand how you can make a fortune in property without buying a house. If you're smart, hungry and motivated, believe it or not, guys, you can do this. I'm by no means a genius or anything like that. I'm a simple guy. I'd like to think that I've sorry, Ashwin has put, what date is it? So it's the 19th of November, which is actually a week after my birthday. So I'll be expecting a lot of birthday presents. I'm by no means anyone special, but what I have got, I've got a lot of determination, I've got a lot of energy, and I make sure that things happen. People, there are two kinds of people. There are people that talk, and there are people that do. I don't talk about it, I just go off and do it. If I sit and talk about it, it will never get done. Now, from your point of view, guys, what are you going to do? You're going to sit here and you're going to talk about it, or you're going to think about it, and you're going to miss the opportunity. Which means that next year you're still going to be in a similar scenario that you're right now, and you think, damn, I should have took that opportunity. For the sake of £47, take the plunge, come and spend a day with me, come and network, let's have some chat, and let's see how we can get you out of this rat race called life. If you've still got some unanswered questions, feel free to give me a call. That's my personal mobile number there. So it's 07967 016 425, or you can send me an email directly at arsh@arshellahi.com. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you've had a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you on the 19th. That's all I can say, guys, because take the knowledge, go and smash 2017 to pieces. Do what I did. I had to go through a life event and losing my father to make me sit up and think, you know what, enough of this. Let's go out and make some real cash. And as a result of that, I've been in the strongest position that I've ever been in. So guys, on that note, I'd like to say thank you very much for your time. And I'll see you all on the 19th. Take care. Good night. God bless.